Hello everyone, this is Gleb, and today I want to show you a callback pattern in Cypress and how to avoid it. So imagine we are testing adding a to-do, we added a to-do, and then we got the list of items in the list, and we looked at the to-do we added, and it should have a data to-do ID attribute. Right now we're just checking the existence of an attribute. We don't check the value because we don't have it. Let's get the ID that the application assigns to the to-do so that we can verify the value right here. So right now there is no ID just yet. I'm going to be running the test, so I'm going to move VS Code to the right side of my screen. I'm going to start the application and Cypress. End-to-end tests, I'm going to use Electron, and when application is adding to do, it's making a network call to post the item, and it does send the whole object, and the response includes the ID. So why don't we get this ID from the network call post to do's? Because I'm using a page object, I can wrap just that code, and it's isolated from the rest of the tests. So we can set up an intercept post to do's as new to do, and we can wait for that alias, and we get its response body, let's say ID, and we'll say it should be a string. And this does two things. Not only it verifies it, it actually shows it right there in the command log, so I can see it right away. Back to the code, we need to pass that ID somehow. So one pattern that I've seen people do is to pass a callback to that method that adds to do's, and then so it's going to be right here, and we can say param function callback. Once we have a value, then we'll call that callback, and whatever value is yielded is passed to that function. So right here, okay. So we got the ID, we passed it back, and we use it to confirm the value of an attribute. To me, this pattern is very similar to old, Node.js, where you always had to pass a callback if you wanted the value to be computed and passed asynchronously back to the caller. There's nothing wrong, it does work, but I think it's a little bit unyieldy because you keep passing those functions everywhere, and it's making it harder to actually write nice clean code that proceeds from top to bottom. Just like callbacks were replaced with promises in Node.js and JavaScript programming, we can replace the callback with chaining additional assertions. And the way to do it is to realize that we can just return this chain right here, and then we don't have to call a callback. The same then callback can be called by the caller of add-to-do method. So I'm going to remove a callback. I'm returning the chain of Cypress commands, and right here, instead of a callback, I can say then and the same function as before. Perfect. Works just like. It's not a promise side then, it's a Cypress method or Cypress command side then, but in most cases acts like a promise. And it happened, and it was done in Cypress way before JavaScript got native promises. So Cypress used Bluebird library to implement promises under the hood and implemented the chaining that you yield the value to the next function. So it was way before normal promises were added to JavaScript, and definitely way before async await. All right, all good, except sometimes you don't need this value right away, so attaching a callback immediately to calling the method is tying those, adding an item and using the ID immediately. You might have to use that ID much later. So this is my pattern, if I don't need it immediately, is to save it under an alias. We can hardcode the alias, or we can pass it to the function. Okay, alias name, and that's gonna be a string, so we can say alias name, and we can even make it optional, and we can say new to do ID. Okay, So now we can say, okay, I don't need it just yet, but I'm gonna give it an alias, something like this. And then maybe sometimes later I want to verify that the new to-do was added, and I can say get me first to-do ID, right? Whatever I pass as an alias name, and that yields you the value asynchronously into the command chain, and you pass it to Cyvan and do whatever you want. All right, so this is my pattern for combining page object methods. I showed how to use callbacks, and then how to use Cypress chains, and then how to use Cypress aliases so that you can get value yielded back from the method objects, so that the rest of your testing code can use those values to do additional testing.